she referred to as a monster. The waitress at Mel's diner, who was scarred, walked around in long sleeves daily, subject to mean jokes about her deformed hands from patrons who only noticed ugliness when something else was concealed. For 3 years, Sarah Miller had kept the secret, serving coffee as people made fun of how she looked and tossed tips on the ground like she was below their level. But on this day, when a hard shove from a construction worker makes her stumble, her well-guarded image fractures, the sleeve is pushed up, and the military tattoo is exposed, causing a quiet diner in the corner table to stiffen in astonishment. His instant recognition will destroy all supposition in this diner. What terrible secrets lie behind those scars? Michael Kelly sat slumped in the corner booth, the same booth he had occupied 2 hours prior when the morning rush had just started and the coffee had not yet grown stale. His gnarled hands clasped his third cup of cold, black coffee, as he struggled with 18 years of searching and questioning. The picture in his jacket pocket felt like burning against his chest. A dim image of a younger him in desert fatigues, among fellow comrades from 3rd Infantry Division, their smiles aglow with youth's invincibility before that evening in July 2006 altered everything in ways which haunted his dreams even to this day. He observed the waitress gliding with unmistakable military precision between tables. Her every movement economical and controlled, always slightly turning her left side away from customers, always in long sleeves. Despite the diner's stifling heat that had other customers fanning themselves with menus. The manner she glided, the manner she stood, the manner she instinctively searched the room every few minutes, as though searching for danger. It all hollered military training to someone who knew what to listen for. But it was more than that. There was something particular about her carriage that had caused him to stay on beyond a planned brief. Breakfast to this grandstand watching session. It has to be her, he said to himself, for what must have been the 20th time. His voice almost inaudible over the creaky old air conditioner's dying wheeze and the crackle of cooking bacon in the kitchen. After 18 years of scouring every VA hospital, every veterans reunion, every internet forum and database, it just has to be her standing right here in this nowhere diner. But uncertainty chewed at him with razor-sharp teeth. Because how could he know when the last time he'd caught sight of her face, it had been lit up by fire and splattered with blood? Her voice, the last he'd heard before blackness consumed him in that blazing Humvee. The memories arrived in shards like shrapnel. The explosive boom of the ice, the flames that had instantly converted their vehicle into a furnace of death. The door that refused to budge despite his pulling it with all his might, and then the face that emerged through the smoke. Like an angel of vengeance who had picked him over her own life. He recalled her hands, steady amidst the fray, yanking him through the window that had appeared far too small. Recalled the manner in which she had returned for Thompson, even as the ammunition was cooking off from the heat.
Recalled above all the instant when the second I'd exploded and she had covered him with her body without hesitation. The doorbell above the entrance rang out harshly, breaking his daydream as Chad Morrison and his building crew pushed their way into the diner. With the sort of pugnacious self-assurance that instantly changed the mood. From peaceful morning stillness to one that was charged and uncomfortable like pre-storm static electricity. Chad 6'2" of arrogant entitlement covered in a Branson construction jacket that fit tightly across muscles more developed in the gym than on actual work sites, his eyes immediately roving the room like a predator looking for the easiest prey, the type of man who had hit his peak in high school and spent the remainder of his life attempting to recapture the momentary reign. His eyes fixed on Sarah as she walked over to their table, notepad at the ready, and his lips curled into a sneer that his friends knew all too well, the look that signaled his unique form of cruelty masquerading as humor. Behind him, his 2 crew members trailed like hyenas in the wake of a lion, already chuckling in expectation of whatever verbal assault their leader was about to unleash. Because this was their morning show, their means of being superior to another human being before going to a job where they were nothing more than faceless laborers. Well, boys, I guess we have ourselves a mystery on our hands. Chad boomed loudly enough for half the diner to see and hear. His voice booming that special tone of fake camaraderie perfected by bullies when they wished their listeners to understand something mean was in store. Hey waitress, why don't you get yourself dressed down a bit? This restaurant is hot as Hades, and you're covered up like it's winter in Alaska. What are you concealing beneath all of that clothing? Something terrible. Scars from a meth lab explosion. Track marks you wouldn't want the health inspector to know about. His team laughed obediently, the noise jarring and discordant in the still morning, as other customers suddenly became interested in their coffee cups and newspapers. That specific kind of cowardice that permitted evil to thrive, because good people valued comfort over confrontation. Sarah walked toward their booth with deliberate strides, her face a carefully maintained mask of professional detachment that had been honed over the course of many like encounters. Although Michael sensed the faint rigidity of tension in her shoulders, the manner in which her left hand remained precisely positioned behind the order pad. The morning sunlight filtered through the diner's dirty windows, casting slanted shadows that appeared to carve the room into territories.
The light places where everyday life went on, and the dark shadows where past horrors hid, waiting for moments like this to come out again. Sarah's face was still a mask built up over years of practice with wayward customers. But something more, too. The sort of calm that came from confronting real horror and living. Good morning, gentlemen! What can I get started for you today? Her voice held no emotion. No response to the insult, which only served to add fuel to Chad's taunting. Like a shark smelling blood in the water and not knowing it was moving toward its own demise. The very lack of response only seemed to enrage him, as if her refusal to be provoked was a personal affront to his power. And his face darkened with the special anger of small men who required others to feel. From his corner booth, Michael observed the scene with increasing tension, his hands subconsciously forming fists which carried their own scars of another place and time. Knuckles tense with the effort of resisting instant intervention. Something in the waitress's demeanor, the way she stood even after the verbal abuse, reminded him of inner strength, of a person who had endured much. Much worse than the petty meanness of little men and survived the kind of thing that would destroy most people. The photo in his pocket felt heavier as he looked at her profile, seeking affirmation from the angle of her jaw, the placement of her shoulders, the way she tucked a piece of dark hair behind her ear with her right hand, while keeping the left safely behind the order pad. Every movement choreographed to conceal something while presenting the mask of normality. Chad sat back in his chair, pretending to eye her up and down with melodramatic revulsion. That would be funny if it were UN so real. Perhaps begin by telling me why you're wearing winter clothes in the middle of summer. Covering up for burn scars? Some sort of kitchen mishap when you were too dim to keep an eye on the fryer? Or perhaps you're simply one of those cutters who can't cope with the real world without taking it out on yourself. The words lingered in the air like venom as his friends shifted uneasily, their own laughter turning forced and tense as even they could tell he was stepping over lines he shouldn't. An older couple at the table, two away from us, shared concerned looks. The husband's jaw clenched as if ready to say something, his hand involuntarily extending toward the cane next to his chair. But his wife's soft touch on his arm silenced him with a whisper, "Don't make trouble, Harold. It's not our business," even as her eyes reflected the shame of choosing safety over righteousness. The tension in the diner had become almost palpable, like the oppressive heat before a thunderstorm, with every patron acutely aware of the drama unfolding, but caught in that peculiar paralysis of bystanders who wanted to help but feared becoming targets themselves. Even the chef had ceased his customary racket in the kitchen, looking through the service window with a scowl knitting his seamed face, his grip on the spatula tightening as if weighing whether to act. It was one of those moments that revealed character that indicated who people were really when confronted with the option of comfort versus courage. And most were failing the test because they had failed so many times before. The very air grew thick with unspoken embarrassment and mounting tension. That it was a place where something had to yield, where the pressure would either release or blow. And all seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see how the morning would unfold. But what was this stranger in the corner, staring at her so intently? What did Michael Kelly know of this very typical waitress? That caused him to hold his cup of coffee so hard his knuckles grew white with the strength of restraint. What caused him to reach again and again for the photograph in his pocket, as if it were a charm against skepticism. The response would soon topple the very foundations of all their assumptions about the shy woman, who took their coffee orders with battered hands and lowered lids.